WWE 2K16 has finally arrived. The newest yearly release from the WWE 2K series, which of course started way back on the PlayStation 1 as the SmackDown series and has evolved quite a long way until we've gotten to now. This also happens to be the second WWE 2K game to be released on current generation consoles like PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Last year's game was a huge disappointment to me as a longtime, not only wrestling fan, but wrestling video game fan. So the real question will be, does this game truly stack up? Is this a main event? Or is this game just another jobber? WWE 2K16 is a vast, humongous improvement over 2K15. It's like night and day comparing these games, from a lot of its core standpoint. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that this game is still worth immediately running to the store and picking up. There's been a lot of changes, a lot of improvements. Some other things still aren't quite there yet. However, I have to say, before I even jump really into the review, what you necessarily play a wrestling game for and what I play a wrestling game for may be completely different. And that's what's great about wrestling and wrestling fans in general. We all like different wrestlers, different styles of wrestlers, different eras of wrestling, and different companies. So, while I am more focused on the creating my own wrestlers and getting to simulate matches, there are a lot of people that maybe like just the online mode, just the 2K showcase mode, just doing exhibition matches with friends or watching the computer battle one another. Or you may love the MyCareer mode, creating your own wrestler and actually living out the career of a WWE superstar. And because everyone likes so many different things, I'm going to do my best to go over each of the modes in the game and see what's kind of changed up in my initial impressions. But what necessarily I like and don't like about a game, you may actually find enjoyable. So let's keep that all in mind as we dive into the actual details of the game. One of the first things that was announced about WWE 2K16 was the roster. They were boasting right away this was going to be the biggest roster to date, and they're right. Well, the biggest roster in a wrestling game that involves WWE. There's over 100 unique wrestlers. There's some variants of each wrestler, and there's a lot of great current wrestlers and a bunch of throwbacks that made it into the game that are really cool. There's plenty of head-scratching moments where you're like, why is this guy in the game, or why isn't this guy in the game? And it kind of stings that some guys who were maybe in last year, like Alberto Del Rio, got removed, and of course he ended up returning just a few days ago. It's also good to know that two current WWE champions, the Divas champion Charlotte and the US champion Alberto Del Rio, are not included in the game. Though this kind of stuff always happens with wrestling games because the rosters are set months ahead of time. Though I have to say, some of the throwback wrestlers are really cool because it features the WWE 2K Showcase mode with Stone Cold Steve Austin's career, and because of that, we got ECW staple Mikey Whipwreck. We got 1994 era Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. Brian Pillman is included, and even Savio Vega, due to their matches they had with Stone Cold Steve Austin. However, there are a few choices that make no sense to me, like why is Billy Gunn in the game but not Road Dogg? Billy Gunn isn't included in the 2K Showcase mode with Austin, so it doesn't really make sense why you would have one and not the other when both are actually still under WWE contract at the moment. There's also General Adnan and Colonel Mustafa, of course most well known as the Iron Sheik and Billy White Wolf. However, in this game, they're featured from their time with Sergeant Slaughter when he was an Iraqi sympathizer, which would make sense if they included any kind of throwback to the Ultimate Warrior versus Slaughter or Hogan versus Slaughter, but because of Hogan's problems, Hulk Hogan, of course, is removed from the game. So I don't know if they were planning on including anything like that in there, or they're a holdover from a previous game with licenses and they just kind of like, well, we already have the license, let's throw them in. When it comes to the modern roster, though, they did a good job of including as many of the current roster members as they possibly could, including a bunch of NXT superstars, including my favorite NXT tag team, Enzo Amore and Colin Cassidy. You also have Tyler Breeze, who recently got jumped up to the main roster, Japanese superstar Hideo Itami, and the NXT champion Finn Balor, who not only has a normal entrance, but also has his demon entrance. And I have to say, this is one of, if not the #1 coolest thing to see in the game. They did an amazing job recreating Finn Balor's demon entrance, and he looks amazing in the game. When the bell rings and it's time to actually enter the ring, there has been some major changes to the gameplay that some people are going to absolutely love, and there's going to be plenty of people, including myself, that really aren't all that fond of it. They've really changed the reversal and submission systems in the game, though there has been tweaks to other stuff like the pinfall system. When it comes to reversals, you now have a meter that's below your health, and it's broken up into segments. When you do a reversal, a segment goes away. And if you run out of segments, you have to wait for it to completely refill. Now, granted, if you do one reversal and then wait a while, that part will refill up. You don't have to use all your reversals and then wait for the entire meter to refill. Some wrestlers are only going to have 3 reversals, while other ones may have 5 or 6. It's all depending on their reversal stat. This does add some new bit of strategy where you may decide it's not worth it for me to reverse this punch. I may want to save it for a bigger move from my opponent. But because of this and that unbalance of some wrestlers having more reversals than others, and when you don't have any, you just get the crap kicked out of you. A wrestler can decide to store finishers just for that moment. Oh, you've wasted all your reversals. Now let me hit you with the big moves. When it comes to the submission system, oh boy, I don't know what they were thinking when it comes to this. You now have a circle meter, and it's a little bit similar to when you're doing chain wrestling with a guy and you have to hit the R stick at a certain spot and the red part of the circle will fill up, and if it fills up, you're able to do whatever the move is in that whole chain wrestling segment. However, with submissions, whoever's doing the submission controls a red piece of the meter. Whoever is getting the submission done to them controls a blue piece of the meter, and what you have to do is you have to put the red into the blue, and when you do, it fills up. If it fills all the way up, the person ends up submitting. However, if the blue is able to get away from the red and stay away long enough, they end up breaking the hold. Now, once again, this is based off your submission stat for whatever particular wrestler you're using, but it's really clunky and really awkward, and honestly, it is one of, if not the worst aspect that they've changed to the gameplay in WWE 2K16. Now that we've talked about some of the core gameplay, let's look at one of the really cool modes of WWE 2K16, and that's the Showcase mode. The Showcase, back from last year, which included the rivalries between CM Punk and John Cena, Triple H and Shawn Michaels, now features only one showcase. But they do a great job of pretty much showcasing all of Stone Cold Steve Austin's WWE career, from when he won the King of the Ring in 1996 up until when he fought and lost to The Rock at WrestleMania 19. Longtime fans of wrestling or fans of Stone Cold Steve Austin, this may be worth the price of admission right here. If you're one of those fans that kind of got out of wrestling, don't mess with wrestling, haven't bought a wrestling game in years, and don't even know what the current product is all about, but you were a fan of Austin or the Attitude Era, this may be worth checking out just for that. 2K and Geeks do a great job of recreating these matches, recreating the arenas, the outfits, the commentary, and pivotal match moments, all done in not only your main core gameplay, but then they have cutscenes that play out, which sometimes includes quick time events, which I'm not the biggest fan of, because if you end up failing them, you have to restart the whole match to get another chance at them. But when you get to see some of these cutscenes, it's really cool. It was tons of nostalgia that came rushing back. And they include almost every major Stone Cold Steve Austin matchup during that time period, including a few throwback matches as bonuses. They're not, unfortunately, included in the main story of the 2K Showcase, but as you go through, you'll unlock the bonus matches, which include Austin's matchup against Brian Pillman at Clash of Champions, Austin versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Austin versus Mikey Whipwreck, and Austin versus Savio Vega from WrestleMania 12. Getting to see the WCW Bash at the Beach 94 arena in the game, that's awesome. That is really, really cool to see, and they do a pretty decent job of trying to recreate the ECW arena from 1995. They do their best when it comes to that. And you actually get Joey Styles doing the commentary for the ECW match. Unfortunately, Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler are calling the matchup for the WCW throwback matches, but you get some, you lose some. Now, there are some matches missing from the core 96 to WrestleMania 19 that I would have liked to seen. Scott Hall versus Austin at WrestleMania 18 is a match I would have loved, because it would have, well, gotten Scott Hall into the game, but that's a very minor gripe. I have to say, if you want to be a purist, though, you make sure that you turn on the blood option. It was something I didn't notice until a little bit ways in. I got to WrestleMania 13 with Austin versus Hart, which is one of, if not my favorite match of all time, and solidified my love of pro wrestling from that match alone. But doing that matchup and not seeing Austin bleed from the head, and it should have been done really well, getting to see a ton of blood. That would have been a heck of a lot better. But not having it there is just, it takes you out of the moment. Another take me out of the moment thing was WrestleMania 14. They didn't penny up the money to license Mike Tyson again, which he was in previous games, and he is a wrestling fan. I'm sure if he offered him money, he would have taken it to be in this game as well. But they replace him with the Enforcer, a guy who looks nothing like him. Obviously, copyright reasons, he couldn't look like Tyson at all, but it ends up really taking me out of the match. Even the announcers are calling him the Enforcer. It's awkward. It's really awkward looking just to look at it. While this was, of course, a very important match because it was Austin's first title win, so I guess they had to include it, but it probably would have been better if they had just skipped it. Some of the highlights for me, not only the Bret Hart feud, but his matches with Michaels. I love getting to see some of the McMahon feud, including the ladder match him, Shane, and Vince had at King of the Ring. St. Valentine's Day Massacre with him and McMahon in the cage, where the Giant made his debut for WWE, Paul White, before he became Big Show. And big props, because I'm such a huge Mick Foley fan, getting to see not one but both of the Dude Love main events from 1998, April and May's pay-per-view, getting to see those recreated and having Dude Love in multiple outfits. As a Mick Foley fan, that was huge to me, but obviously if you have no nostalgia, this mode in general probably won't mean all that much. But for those who do have that nostalgia, you're probably gonna love playing through this. And it lasts a little bit of time. It took me about 6 or 7 hours just to get through the 2K Showcase mode. And if you're wondering, you can actually adjust the difficulty. So if you're not playing wrestling games for years or just want to experience it, if you put it on easy, you should be able to breeze through most of the matches, no problem, just to relive the cutscenes and the historical aspects without having to master the controls. Just the very basic controls, you should be able to work your way through those. The MyCareer mode returns once again as well, and I have to say there's some big improvements here. You still get to create your own WWE superstar and live their career, starting on NXT and at the training center, and work your way up to Superstars main event, SmackDown, Raw, winning championships, and solidifying a Hall of Fame career. You have a lot more control now. It seems like it's easier to get into rivalries with opponents, form tag teams, and choose your destiny a lot easier by picking what titles you want in particular, getting a ranking system, and working your way up. There's also a star system for the matches, where doing different things you'll earn stars in matches, and the more stars you earn, the more points you get to use for your wrestler. You don't get to do all your stats at the beginning. You start off with default stats, and you have to slowly work your stats up while winning matches, and having really good matches, of course, will net you a lot more points. One thing not included that really would have been cool is a Divas career mode of some kind, even if it was a Divas showcase or a Divas storyline. The Divas Revolution has really gotten steam behind it over the last few months, and 2K, I know, got a lot of negative feedback when it was announced that Charlotte, Becky Lynch, Sasha Banks, and my personal favorite Bayley were not even going to be included in the game. Mark my words, 2K17 will probably have a lot more, not only the Divas, but maybe even a Divas career mode, or maybe be able to create your own Diva for a career mode. But at least we can create Divas again, unlike 2K15 where you weren't able to even create them. Now, in the career mode though, I try to immerse myself in it. I try to live my character's life of being a WWE superstar, picking the best moments for the build rivalries or who I think it would be more logical for me to team with. But with segments, they end up having these interview segments where you get to hear your wrestler actually talk. You have no control over the voice acting in the game. It's similar if you're a fan of the NBA 2K series, where you create your own basketball player and go through the NBA career, and they have all these cutscenes and all that stuff that kind of play out. It's like a dumbed down version of that from NBA 2K. There's not as much cutscenes, and when it is there, it just feels awkward. The voice acting is really dull, really stale. You have no control over even like the pitch or volume of your voice. You get very little choices when it comes to interview segments, and I gotta say, the interview segments don't work at all. It really take you out of the game. Like, you'll have the interviewer go like, "I'm here with," and then the game will glitch and be like, "We're talking about, whatever wrestler," and then they finally get the question out that they're trying to ask. I also got asked like the same questions all the time. They're kind of default questions they set up so that, like, do you want to get into a rivalry with a particular wrestler, then you choose certain options so you can find out pretty early on, nah, I don't want to feud with that guy, or yes, I want to make sure that I'm feuding with this particular wrestler. Like I said, big improvements to this mode, but it still needs quite a lot of work to kind of really immerse me and make me feel like a true WWE superstar. Let's talk about the creation suite. First off, it's humongously improved. I mean, this is the area of the game where they have improved the most. It's far from perfect, though. I have to say that right away. Thankfully, they've added a lot of stuff back to the mode to really help our overall immersion into being able to create our own stuff. A lot of people, like myself, create our own fictional worlds, our own fictional wrestlers, and simulate the matches, and WWE has always done a pretty good job of their games being able to kind of do that. Last year, I skipped out on the creation options because they were so limited and so poor, and you weren't even able to create divas, which, for my fictional universe, is an all-women's fictional universe, so that was kind of important to me. When it comes to creation options, though, it's night and day. There is a ton more hairs, though I have to say it's kind of disappointing that women only have 30 hairs when men have over 100 hairs. Granted, some of them aren't all that different for male wrestlers, but it would have been nice to have those options. There's a lot of cool creative hairs on the male side that you can't pick on the female side. For example, like a mohawk you can't put on the women. When it comes to the outfits for the wrestlers, obviously there's also a lot more outfits that are available for the male wrestlers that aren't available for the females. Now granted, there are some stuff that females have that males don't, which would make logical sense, but why even have that? Just allow us to put everything on each of the wrestlers. Make whatever kind of crazy creations we want. That's the fun and enjoyment. So it would have been nice to have all options and all clothing options, hair options, and all that stuff available for both male and female wrestlers. People like to create goofy stuff. Some people like to get really creative with their outfits, so it would have been nice to have those options. Patterns are no longer available in the game. This has been for the last couple of games, where you can't make an outfit like take a pair of shorts and make them camo, or make them American flag, or whatever you may want. Now, with logo creation, and you're able to import your own logos, you can kind of do this. Like, you can download or even upload your own camouflage type pattern, and then download it and put it wherever you want in your character. So it takes a little of messing around with it to get everything just right, but you can do it. If you work hard enough, you can still put on all like the different kind of patterns and stuff like that, but you have to kind of go out of your way. It's a lot harder to do. Speaking of the creation logos, you can put any logo of anything that you want into the game. But just from using the website and uploading my own logos, I was able to upload the Cornshaq logo and actually put it on my character that I ended up using in MyCareer mode, and it looked great. You do, of course, have to put it at the right resolution, use like a PNG file so that the background is cut out so that it'll look exactly the way you want it in the game. But anyone with kind of like a basic graphic knowledge should have no problems being able to do that. And people are uploading all kinds of logos and all kinds of creative stuff, so there's a ton to mess around with, and you can do the limit. There's almost no limit to what wrestlers you can kind of recreate. It's kind of only limited if they can't have that kind of outfit in the game, and you need a particular outfit in order to truly create a wrestler. Other than that, it's really kind of up to you, and I know there's so many really creative people that love to create a wrestler, and there's some really good stuff you can do here. The facial features, being able to like tweak every aspect of the face now, like each eye could be different things, or people that can get really good at it and really creative with it. There's almost no limit to people's faces that you can do. In fact, you can even upload and import your own faces that you would like, for whether it's a wrestler, celebrity, or even yourself. There's an app that's going to help you with that, which is not currently available, will be available soon, as well as you can just upload your faces via a website. With that being said, this is difficult. You have to have a face just the way you want, like looking completely straight at the camera when it's taken. It's best to kind of remove hair and remove any background stuff that may be going on. Sometimes erasing the eyes, I know that sounds really weird, but erasing the eyes, making them all white, will allow you to kind of match up, because what you're going for is you want the facial features to look exactly like a particular wrestler. So if you're good at it, if you can get good at it, the possibilities are absolutely endless when it comes to the faces, and there's a ton of stuff available to download. Not only downloadable wrestlers, but downloadable arenas, downloadable belts. There's a lot of stuff you can download through the users, through the community creations. Though there is a limit per day, which is really dumb to me. Especially early on when I'm working on creating so many wrestlers and I'm trying to get these patterns uploaded because, you know, they didn't include camo and stuff, that I'm running out of downloads in a day. You can only download 20 objects from the creation, community creations in a single day, and then you have to wait for a 24-hour timer to go up before you're able to download again. I guess limitations so that people didn't download millions of things per day, but kind of dumb to include. And I don't know if there's any kind of, I don't think there's any microtransactions to eliminate that counter. Thankfully, they did not include that kind of microtransaction. Is always bad enough that we have the season pass and the accelerator where you can instantly get stat points, as well as unlocking everything in the game defaultly if you want to pay for those microtransactions. We didn't need any more, so thankfully they're not included. Thankfully, on current gen, they've also upped how many creations we can do again, so we're now up to 100 created wrestlers that we're able to make, plus you're able to do all the other cool creative features as well. Create a belt is back, and there's a lot you can do with create a belt, and make it a championship for your universe mode, or defend it in single player mode. You can put logos on it just like you can with all the other stuff. You can create your own arena again. Thankfully, that's back, and there's a lot of really great creative options with that. One thing I really loved about it was when I was doing text to have on the apron of my created arena, it was really easy to make the text. A lot of times before, you had to pick each individual letter and kind of line it up right. Now you can do a string of letters and have them appear the way you want it, so it's kind of like one picture file including it. Or you can upload on your computer, create your own logo with lettering or whatever you want, upload it into the game and have that on the ring apron. You can also customize the announce tables, the stages, with all the stuff that's available in the game. So there's a ton of options here. People have actually created some really cool throwback stadiums, arenas from not only previous games, but ones that have never been included again. I've seen some classic WCW stuff with all the logos and monitors and everything in almost the exact right place. Of course, there are limitations because of what the game provides, but it's really, really cool to see all this stuff. Thankfully, Create an Entrance is back to the way it should be. You have all the motions available to you. You can, of course, pick when pyro goes off. There's a large variety of different pyros and different special effects that you can add to your character's entrance. Last year, they were very limited at what motions you could pick. So thankfully, you can pick, I think, every motion that's available in the game you can choose for your created entrance. Unfortunately, there's no custom soundtracks. I know Sony and Microsoft don't include these in the game or on their systems, but it would have been nice to actually come up with some kind of creative way to put them in. I mean, we have to upload all our own logos and stuff. Maybe upload our own music to some kind of special server and download them to our hard drive so that we could use them in the game. I know, obviously, there's copyright issues, but people are uploading all kinds of copyrighted stuff onto the community creations. And maybe it could be one of those things where if we do that, we couldn't upload a wrestler that had a custom theme, or we couldn't just upload the music and only for our own personal use. But I would have greatly taken that over not including any kind of custom soundtrack whatsoever. The Universe mode returns once again as well. This is another big drawing point for people. Unfortunately, I would have liked to create a pay-per-view or the create a story options to return. Unfortunately, they're not. It's just the Universe mode. But it has been greatly fixed and greatly improved for my purposes. You can create your own shows now. You can get rid of Monday Night Raw, get rid of SmackDown, Main Event, NXT, whatever you want. You can get rid of all the shows. And you can now create your own custom show, give it a logo, give it a name, and you can give it a custom logo, custom arena, belts created just specifically for that show. Also, wrestlers, you can have them be specifically on one show and on another show as well. In past, if you want a wrestler to be on Raw, they could only be on Raw. You couldn't have them be on a brand split on other shows. Now you can have them on multiple rosters if you want them to be there. You have a lot of cool creative options. You can also do 7 matches per card now. I know in some of the past Universe modes, you could only have 5 matches per card, which was a little disappointing, especially when it came to pay-per-views that may have 7 or 8 matches on a show. You can also activate, deactivate whatever belts you would like. You get to select what your main event title is. So if you want a show to have the Hardcore title as its main event belt, you can do that. Whatever belt you want, you can throw it as a main event. The singles, like lower singles card title, like the Intercontinental US title, you can select which one is that. What is their the equivalent of the women's title, and what the equivalent of the tag team belts are as well. So you can only have 4 belts per show though, but this is enough to allow us to at least be a lot more creative with Universe mode than we could before. Now, there is plenty of new cutscenes and stuff, I'm sure, thrown in. I have to admit, this is the mode I have spent the least amount of time with so far, because I'm still in the process of creating the wrestlers and the universe that I would like. But just these initial changes that I saw from the very beginning were enough to make me mess with Universe mode more so than I have in some of the previous games, especially since Create a Story is no longer included. One mode that I only want to briefly touch on, because unfortunately I'm not an expert on it, so I do apologize to those fans who really like it, and that's the online mode. This isn't something I really get into a whole lot. They have changed the matchmaking system to make it better. I think you can still easily play with friends, so if that's a thing, that's all here. But as far as like random opponents go, I was immediately being greeted by those level 100 created wrestlers that are just spamming the same moves over and over again, which is not what I enjoy in a wrestling game. I like to have like more competitive, fun matches, and that's just not what online really kind of gravitates towards. So there's a lot of options online. You can do, I think, almost all the match types on the online mode. There's a ranking system. There's nightly challenges online, though I didn't really jump too much into that. So there are some cool stuff to online, and that's your thing. I'm sure it's at least as good, if not better, than last year's online, but honestly, I can't say a whole lot about it. Like I said at the beginning of this review, it was going to be tough to kind of look into this game because there's so much going on and everyone plays wrestling games for different reasons, so I hope I did an okay job of at least glancing over some of the key aspects. From a technical standpoint, there's still some issues. The AI is, quote, improved, but I was still running into really, really dumb AI. I didn't kind of mess with the sliders, which you can mess with the sliders in the game to kind of improve reversals or lower reversals or whatever, or change difficulties a whole lot to see like how much better the AI was on Legendary compared to Easy. But I was still running into things where the AI would just kind of like bug out, stand there, not do anything, or do something completely ridiculous for absolutely no reason. One of the big things that bothered me was you can now interfere at any time during your opponent's entrance. Like if they're coming out first, you can interfere. The opponents can interfere on you, especially during MyCareer mode when you're in a rivalry. However, when they came out and interfered, they would kind of keep grappling me. They would grapple, miss, run, grapple, miss. Like they kept missing every time they tried to interfere during my entrance. Once in a while, they were able to hit me, but more often than not, they completely missed and just was like, what is going on? Also, items bugged out during the course of that same interfering during an entrance. For example, Tyler Breeze coming out with his selfie stick, I interfered against him, and the selfie stick completely glitched out and freaked out before finally disappearing. There's also some weird stuff with the rope physics and overall physics of the character model still, where like characters' legs and arms will mess up. Arms will shake really weirdly, like when grabbing ropes. And I'm not talking about like Ultimate Warrior, going crazy. I'm talking about like just weird stuff where it just like really shakes really bad for a few seconds. Minor stuff like that. Though the game did crash on me a couple of times during the Create a Wrestler. Also, Create a Wrestler load times in particular are pretty bad. I guess because they have 2 models of the wrestler you're creating at all times, in-ring and entrance, up on the screen. Like you don't switch between them and load them. Like they're both up there at all times. Also, when you go into something like facial creation or body, changing their body, the wrestler goes to kind of their default clothes, like bald, with like the default outfit on, and going back and forth between that and their actual outfit takes forever to load. I mean, it was taking a long time to get through some of my creations because of going back and forth. One thing that was really cool at it, the Career Wrestler that I forgot to mention, is you can actually select the material that an outfit is made out of. So this is really cool. Like, instead of just having the default, like, you can make it metallic or satin vinyl, whatever, and it actually really changes up. The problem is the loading for changing it between, like, let's say metallic and vinyl takes forever. Like, it feels like it's taking forever for it to finally load up. So a lot of times I'm just like, default's good enough. I don't feel like waiting through the load screen for it to finally come up. But with everything being said, I am going to give WWE 2K16 a 7 out of 10. This game is massively improved from last year's game, but it's still not up to the standards that I necessarily would like. Changes to the core gameplay, that submission and reversal system really brought the game down in fun level for me, though. Of course, everything I've mentioned during the course of this review, everyone's going to have a different opinion. But that's going to wrap up this review of WWE 2K16. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.